or the Ozempic dip. America's obesity curve finally bends. Here's the news. Gallup's National Health and Wellbeing Index shows self-reported adult obesity dipping from 39.9% in 2022 to about 37% in 2025. Now, that's not huge, but still, that's affecting millions of people. The timing tracks with the rapid adoption of GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. More than 1 in 8 adults reported using a GLP-1 in mid-2025, up from under 6% in 2024. So this is really taking off like wildfire. If you're not taking it, chances are a lot of people in your immediate circle are if you live in the United States. These medicines tamp down hunger, slow gastric emptying, and signal insulin and improve insulin signaling. In large random trials, semi-gluten produced roughly 15% average weight loss over 6 to 8 weeks with basic lifestyle support. Some combinations hit around 20% at higher doses. Caveats are real. The Gallup metric is self-reported. Weight regain is common after stopping. Side effects can be significant, and the price tag is steep. The FDA has already added cardiovascular risks to Wegovy's label. These drugs work more like statins than cures. They help while you take them, but if you stop taking them, problems return. So what's the real message here? For decades, for centuries, people have looked for that magic pill, that magic drug to make them thinner. It looks like it is finally here. The research is in. People are really becoming less obese once they take Ozempic, Wegovy, and these other GLP-1s. Let's dig a little bit deeper here. So this is a tough issue. And let me be very clear. I'm not saying anyone should take this to become prettier or more beautiful or look great in a bathing suit for an Instagram. We're not talking about vanity here, although clearly a lot of people take these drugs. We're talking about a major health crisis in America and increasingly around the Western world and other parts of the world. For most of human history, the biggest problem most people had was starving to death. Obesity was extraordinarily rare. Even when I was a kid in America, obesity was extraordinarily rare. Now it's become commonplace. Depending on what definition you want to use, there are as many as 70% of Americans who aren't just overweight, but are actually obese, if you use one of the new metrics for determining that. And here's the problem with obesity. It's not that you just don't look good in a bathing suit. You dramatically increase your chances of obesity, of cognitive decline, of stroke, of hypertension, of simply dying 10, sometimes 15, sometimes 20 years earlier than you would if you were at a so-called normal weight. So unless you think it's cool for people to die 10 or 15, 20 years earlier than they otherwise would, it makes no sense to say, well, all bodies are equally as healthy. You can say all people have equal moral worth. I'm on board with that. You can say all people of all shapes deserve love. I'm on board with that. But the idea that if you had a choice between weighing a normal body mass weight for your body versus being 100 pounds overweight and being obese, and those are equally the same, that's just not true. That's like saying you have 2 kids, one of them is healthy and active, one of them does heroin every day, and you may love them both, but are you really going to kid yourself that both are equally as healthy and are going to live the same amount of time? Now, I'm being a little bit unfair in that analogy because heroin is not the same thing as eating 4,000 calories a day when you only need 2,000. It's actually more dangerous to your body in terms of overall deaths eating the standard American diet than heroin is. Very few people die of heroin each year compared to the number of people who die from obesity, from just heart attacks alone. Beyond that, there's the extreme quality of life issue. People start to recede from activity, playing with your kids, your grandkids, going for walks, sports, when obesity rises. So let's step back. And again, I'm going to be fair and nonpartisan here. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the health czar for the current administration in Washington, says a lot of crazy, kooky things about vaccines. But one thing he does say, where I think there is a lot of scientific background and justification, is that the number one way to deal with obesity is to actually eat real food that's not processed, that's not the standard American diet, that doesn't have lots and lots of sugar, processed sugar, processed carbohydrates, lots of salt, fast food, processed food. Eat real food, real fruits and vegetables, lightly processed, and exercise. If you do that, and I'm going to get some hate mail here, it's virtually impossible to become obese. Well, but TJ, I've tried every diet in the world. Really? Okay. Yeah, there's always some individual variance, but the actual genetic makeup of human beings is not that different today as it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago, or 2,000 years ago. Why is it that obesity has skyrocketed where it was practically non-existent 100 years ago? It's not because our genes have changed, because what we put in our mouths, largely garbage. So RFK is absolutely right. The first defense against obesity is eating real food, getting rid of the Cokes, getting rid of the colas, getting rid of the sugar food, getting rid of the sugary buns, the donuts, all of that, eating lots of fresh fruit and fresh vegetables, drinking water. So this costs nothing. This is tap water with a little ice. I don't drink that because I'm virtuous. I drink it because I don't want to become obese. I drink water all day long. It costs nothing. So he is on track there. However, we live in a world where all of us face temptation every day. We live in a world where the typical American, and indeed people around the world, are bombarded with literally thousands of ads begging us to drink Coke, eat donuts, to drink more beer, to consume more candy bars. We are getting reminders thousands of times a day, fill our bodies with junk. And we're getting very few reminders to do what I just did, which is, for those of you listening on the podcast, I'm holding up a glass of water and about to take a sip. We get almost no reminders to do things like that to actually make us healthier. And so it is a problem. It's been said by some experts that these GLP-1 drugs are a great artificial solution to an artificial problem. It is an artificial problem in that people are gorging themselves on garbage food all day long, and we're sitting too much. If you eat lots of raw food and lightly processed food, mostly vegetables and fruit, small portions of meat, and you exercise a lot and you drink a lot of water and you're not consuming much sugar, that does really solve the problem for most people. And I realize it's harder for some than others. So the GLP drugs have been fantastic. We still don't know the long-term impact, but we do know the long-term impact of obesity, which is often early death. So the thinking is really anything that can get people away from carrying this extra 20, 30, 50, sometimes 100 or 200 pounds, it's worth almost any side effect. And there are side effects drugs. I'm not here to recommend them to you, but it's a cultural phenomenon. And certainly if the data came back and showed that after a year and spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, the average person gained 20 pounds, I would report that to you, and that would be worthy of conversation. But it turns out it is really helping people eat less. And from my friends and other people I've talked to who've used this, it really delves at a deeper level. You don't have to suddenly pinch yourself or get a zap to give you willpower when you're about to grab that Twinkie. Your brain simply stops thinking about food as much. It's just easier for you when you've eaten half your plate to push it aside. You simply don't want as much food. And that is a fantastic thing. Is this going to be, are we going to get to the point where pretty much everyone is on? Maybe it is a good thing. I don't know. It's also helps people greatly who have problems drinking too much alcohol and other drugs. It somehow, and no one really knows how, but it somehow seems to reduce the desire for all sorts of risky behavior. And let's face it, eating 3 McDonald's Big Macs in one sitting is extraordinarily risky behavior. Eating an entire pizza in one setting is risky behavior. Drinking 2 bottles of wine at once is a risky behavior. And these GLP-1 drugs are helping. So again, the trials have come back and there's a lot more clinical data. 15% loss of their body weight after 68 weeks. That's pretty impressive. People who combine this with more exercise lost 20% of their body. That is impressive. Now, right now, it can cost 4 figures a month. We're talking about more than $1,000. Price should come down And if we had a government that was willing to stand up to pharmaceutical companies and negotiate on behalf of the entire American population, the prices plummet to the point where this would be seen as no different than a couple of cups of Starbucks coffee. And then we really might see usage go up to 80 or even 90% of the country. I still think you, since I care about you, are better off trying to address core problem for people who are overweight and obese. And I'm not a medical doctor, but I am someone who's read the scientific literature and just seen the history of humans and their health. The core problem does come from eating highly processed food and eating food where the calories are in excess of what you burn. So that's half the problem. The other half of the problem is we're all sitting on our duffs too much. And the idea that you're supposed to eat 10,000 or walk 10,000 steps a day. Okay, I try to walk 15,000 steps a day and go to the weight room and bike and run and play pickleball. Now you may say, well, TJ, you got it cushy or easy. And okay, I'll cop to that. I do perhaps have more time, disposable time and income on my hands than others. But even if you're busy commuting to a job, just get off one subway stop or one bus stop earlier, walk that last few blocks, get another 10 minutes in, rather than sitting to relax and watch the news or scroll text from friends on Facebook. Walk around even inside your house. That can, in fact, help a lot. So I want you to be healthy. And if the only way you can be healthier is taking these drugs, listen to your doctor, don't listen to me. As a general principle, the more we can solve problems at their core, the better. If you have a leaky roof, yeah, you can get increasingly larger buckets around your living room floor to catch the water. And you may reduce the stains on your floor. You might reduce the rot if you have wood floors by getting bigger and bigger buckets and stainless steel buckets that don't leak. But you can also get up on the roof and patch the roof so you don't have a leak. That's my preferred approach to problems anywhere in life, but especially your health.